Good evening everyone. I am Akhil Verma of Grade 10 of Catherine School. I am here to explain about the UN and its principal organs. Following World War I, countries sought to prevent a repeat of the horrific global conflict and established a League of Nations to prevent further wars. However, the League was ineffective due to the United States' refusal to join and its preference for isolationism. The weakened League of Nations was ineffective in preventing another large-scale conflict. States came together to create an international organization more effective at preventing the conflicts. This organization is known as the United Nations. It was born on 24th October 1945. Now, about UNO, my friend will continue.
Thank you, Akhil Verma. I'm Shravya of Grade 10. The United Nations came into existence following the ratification of the United Nations Charter by the five main allies: the United States, the United Kingdom, France, the Soviet Union, and China. The General Assembly met for the first time in Methodist Central Hall, and the Security Council met for the first time a week later. A week after that, the General Assembly adopted the first United Nations resolution, establishing a commission to deal with the problems raised by the discovery of atomic energy. The United Nations has 6 principal organs that oversees the organization's main function: the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the International Court of Justice, the United Nations Secretariat, and the Trusteeship Council. Each principal organ is located at the United Nations headquarters in New York, with the exemption of the International Court of Justice, which is located at The Hague in the Netherlands.
In the UN, it features member states and is the forum before which most of the highest profile diplomacy takes place. Next is the Security Council. The Council is tasked with maintaining international peace and security. The Council's membership is limited to 15 seats, with 10 seats rotating and the 5 permanent seats awarded to the 5 main allies: the United States of America, Britain, France, Russian Federation, and the People's Republic of China. The 10 seats are awarded to Algeria, Ecuador, Guyana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and Switzerland.
The Security Council resolutions are binding on all member states, mandating peaceful resolutions to disputes, imposing sanctions, participating in a multinational peacekeeping force, and authorizing the use of force when a breach of peace has occurred or is imminent. However, the 5 permanent members each have a veto over any proposal before the Council, so matters affecting any of the 5 are generally boomed to leaving the affected countries to resort to customary international law to solve the disputes. Next comes the International Court of Justice, formerly known as the ICJ or The Hague. The International Court of Justice serves as the UN's main judicial body, issuing advisory opinions. The Council is composed of 15 judges, all of whom must be nominated by the Permanent Court of Arbitration and then elected by the General Assembly and the Security Council. The judges, who come from different states, may not hold political, administrative, or professional offices during their 5-year terms.
Next is the Economic and Social Council. The Council has jurisdiction over matters of economy, social welfare, environment, and international development. The Council may form chambers of 3 judges to deal with particular categories of cases and decisions carrying the weight of the full court.
The Secretariat is the boots on the ground organ of the United Nations, led by the Secretary General, responsible for the UN's day-to-day business. The Secretariat is led by the Secretary General, who is appointed by the General Assembly. The current Secretary General is Antonio Guterres. The Secretariat has a wide range of responsibilities, including setting agenda, implementing decisions, providing analysis, administering operations.
Next is the Trusteeship Council. The Trusteeship Council was established in 1945 to provide supervision for the 11 UN trust territories under the supervision of the 7 member states. The Council when all the territories had attained self-government or independence, the Trusteeship Council remains inactive. However, it elects a president and a vice president so that it may be ready for action if called upon. So that's the UN and its principal organs.
Let's now witness the model UN with the General Assembly and the Security Council enacted by the students of Grade 10 Catherine Bingley.
Distinguished delegates, honorable chairs, esteemed faculty advisors, and fellow global citizens. It is my privilege to stand before you today as the president of 79th Model United Nations Conference. As we gather from diverse backgrounds and perspectives, we are united in our pursuit of diplomacy, cooperation, and innovative solutions to our world's most pressing challenges. Let us work together to forge a brighter future for all. Now we entice delegate from South Sudan, a new member to UN.
Thank you, President, Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen. At the onset, allow me to extend warm greetings and congratulations on behalf of His Excellency. South Sudan, officially the Republic of South Sudan, is a landlocked country in East Africa. The total population is about 12.7 million. Juba is the largest and capital city. The South Sudanese culture is rich and diverse with many ethnic groups and cultural traits. The languages spoken are Juba Arabic and English, but there are plans to introduce Kiswahili. The South Sudan has total 10 states and 3 administrative areas: Central Equatoria, Western Equatoria, Eastern Equatoria, Jonglei, Unity, Upper Nile, Lakes, Western Bahr el Ghazal, Eastern Bahr el Ghazal. The South Sudan has experienced civil war. South Sudan has poor human development ranking. President, the theme of 7th session, Leaving No One Behind, together acting for the advancement of peace and sustainable development, is to speak directly to the present state of global affairs. The ideals and value envisioned in the US Charter are as important, relevant as they were at the founding of Noble Organization on October 24, 1945, addressing serious global challenges from conflict, political competition, food insecurity, climatic changes, pandemic threat to international peace and security. President, distinguished delegate, the revitalized government of national unity in the Republic of South Sudan, His Excellency President Salva Kiir Mayardit, has committed to consolidate peace in our country. The revitalized implementation of the peace agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan, primary vehicle for ensuring peace and stability. Therefore, call for a tax-based negotiation which is more viable and will lead to Security Council with enhanced credibility and acceptance. President, in conclusion, I wish to reiterate that our appreciation for your leadership as well as express our commitment for sustainable development and human dignity for present and future generations. Thank you, President, Secretary General.
Thank you, delegate from South Sudan. You can take your position. Rule number 79/121. Topic is climate change. Rule number 79/121/1. Delegate from New Zealand.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate causes. I am here to explain the impact of global warming on the Earth and New Zealand. Temperature rise in New Zealand are likely to be less than its global average but will be higher in South. Apart from the higher temperature, the greatest effect of climate change is likely to be on water resources with higher rainfall in the west and less in the east. More droughts, high winds and localized floodings, increasing water shortage in eastern areas, growing pests and disease problems, cost of change of land use activities to suit the new climate. Sea levels globally are expected to rise between 9 centimeters to 88 centimeters by 22nd century compared with the area of average rise with 10 centimeters to 20 centimeters last century. Raising of sea levels will increase the erosion of vulnerable beaches and may increase the need for coastal protection measures. Potential benefits of climate change includes crop failure, change in ecosystem and increases the skin cancer cases in New Zealand due to high level of ultraviolet radiations. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/121/3. Delegate from Norway.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate causes. Distinguished delegates of the United Nations, esteemed guests and fellow youth, I stand before you today representing Norway, a nation deeply committed to protecting our planet. As we gather here today to discuss the contemporary issue of climate change, I would like to share with you the impacts of climate change on my country, Norway. Climate change is having a profound impact on Norway. Our country is experiencing rising temperatures with an alarming 1.5 degrees Celsius increase since the 1900s. Moreover, the Arctic region, including the northern Norway, is warming at a rate 2 to 3 times faster than the global average. This rapid warming is leading to devastating consequences. Our glaciers, such as the majestic Jostedalsbreen, are melting at an unprecedented rate. Sea level rise is also causing erosion and flooding along our coastlines. The impacts of climate change on Norway's nature and wildlife are equally concerning. Changes in species distribution are altering our ecosystems, while disruptions to marine ecosystems are affecting our fisheries and coral reefs. Climate change is also having a significant impact on human settlements infrastructure in Norway. We are experiencing an increased risk of landslides and floods, while thawing permafrost is causing costly damage to our infrastructure. Climate change is a contemporary issue that requires immediate attention and action. As a global community, we must work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, transition to renewable energy, and protect our natural habitats. Norway is committed to doing its part, and we urge all nations to join us in this fight against climate change. Thank you, President.
79/181/3 Delegate from United Kingdom.
President, motion to move into voting procedure. I am here to elaborate about the problems of climate change in my country. Climate change is impacting the environment and human population of the United Kingdom. The country's climate is becoming more dry in summers and wetter in winters. The frequency and intensity of storms, floods and heat wave is increasing, and sea level rise is impacting the coastal area. The transport sector is a major contributor of greenhouse gas emission, accounting for about a quarter of the total. This is lately due to the reliance on fossil fuels for powering the vehicles, including cars, trucks, aeroplanes and ships. While electric vehicles offer a promising solution, the widespread adoption and the availability of non-renewable resources for charging are still ongoing challenges. So I request our UN members to support our thought. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/181/4 Delegate from France.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate causes. Here is a challenge on the concept of common but differentiated responsibilities and the need for sustainable development. How can developed and developing countries balance their responsibilities to address environmental challenges such as climate change while promoting a sustainable development and economic growth, considering their different capacities and historical responsibilities and development needs? Thank you, President.
Thank you, Delegate from France. Yes, both the developed and developing countries can balance this issue by implementing sustainable practices, reducing waste, adopting new clean technologies, increasing energy efficiency, strengthening regulations, promoting sustainable consumption, investing in research and development, developing new clean technologies, and improving existing ones, fostering public-private partnerships.
I thank the United Nations Global Compact, UNFCCC and UN Environment Programme for again convening this high-level meeting. 2 years ago, 28 companies committed to the Net Zero through the Business Ambitions for 1.5 degrees campaign. Today, this campaign has grown into a movement. Companies everywhere recognizing that sustainable business is good business, that decarbonizing operations and supply chains is not just the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do. Consumers expect it, employers demand it, and our future depends on it. But let's be clear, we are not moving far and fast enough. Temperatures are still on course to rise well above 2 degrees, which is a disaster. So we need more ambitions and more actions. Every country, city and company must decarbonize by 2050 or earlier with verifiable underlying of 2030 targets, credible and clear measures and maximum urgency. The Science-Based Targets Initiative new Net Zero Standards is a welcome tool for companies to ensure consistency. However, there is a defect of credibility, surplus of confusions or emission reduction and net zero targets with different meanings and different metrics. Propose clear standards to measure and analyze net zero commitments from non-state actors. I count on your leadership and urge you to use your influence for good success, meaning billions of lives saved and millions of new jobs and economic gains. Let us safeguard our future and save humanity. Thank you.
2/1 Delegate from Canada.
Thank you, President. Motion for an unmoderate cause. I am here to explain the impact of drug trafficking in Canada. The effects of drugs in Canada are multifaceted and far-reaching. Canada has been grappling with an opioid crisis which leads to addiction among young adults in Canada. Drug use can contribute to mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, with a significant increase in overdose deaths and hospitalizations. The economic burden of drug use in Canada has been estimated to be over $50
billion annually. Drug use has been linked to lost productivity, with many Canadians missing work due to drug use related issues. The illegal drug trade is often linked to crime and violence, posing a threat to public safety. So I request the UN to support and take some precautions against drugs in the world. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/182/2. Delegate from Brazil.
Thank you, President. Motion for an unmoderated cause. I am here to explain the impact of drugs in Brazil. Significant changes have taken place in Brazil's illicit drug market, affecting the structure, profile, modes of operation of organized crime groups. These changes have reflected an evolution of global drug market and the significant rise of drug consumption in Brazil. Brazil has recently become a key destination for drugs. The consumption of cocaine has skyrocketed. The estimation of illicit drug consumption among the general population is 15,506,000, mainly between the age group of 16 to 64. The growth of country's urban population, increase in affluence, and disposable income appear to be the principal cause of expanding drug use. According to the Second National Institute for Public Policy Research on Alcohol and Other Drugs, Brazil is the world's leading consumer and accounts 20% of world's drug market. Extremely high rates of violence in Brazil indicates a clear need for change. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/182/3. Delegate from Guyana.
Thank you, President. Motion for a moderate causes. I am here to interpret the impact of drugs in Guyana. The impacting of intoxicating substances of both licit and illicit has been integral to the existence of colonial power and the control of colonial population, including Caribbean societies. Historically, licensing laws and cultural institutions were used to discipline workers, and the ongoing criminalization of certain drugs illustrate the trans-historical legacies that continue to harm former British colonies like Guyana. Focusing on prisons and prisoners to explore histories and colonial drug policies in a country despite a much changed international context. This article documents experiences and approaches to the management and prohibition of psychoactive substances. This article provides unique and innovative interdisciplinary perspectives on the drugs in Guyana from the past to the present. Consumption and control of intoxicating substances in the country today. So, I request the UN to support Guyana and to fight against drugs. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/183. Topic is illegal immigration. Rule number 79/183/1. Delegate from Wales.
Thank you, President. Motion for a moderate cause. There is some illegal import or export of goods without the permission of our government and without paying any custom duties. It is thus a very serious crime. It harms not one or two persons but injures the welfare of the whole nation. In 2024, 2 men were found guilty of smuggling in the Wales. The men, Dilshad Samo and Ali Kedar, ran a smuggling operation out of car wash in Carfi. They offer migrant travel packages with the highest platinum costing between 10,000 and 25,000 pounds. The men were able to track migrants using TripAdvisor style reviews on the phone. Smuggling has a significant impact on my country economy as it can make less attractive for law-abiding companies and governments to sell the products at the original price. So I request the world nations to support my country, Wales, in this view and fight against smuggling in the world. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/183/2. Delegate from Afghanistan.
Thank you, President. Motion for unmoderate causes. Afghanistan has experienced decades of conflicts and instability, leading to the forced displacement and illegal immigration. Forced displacement. 3.25 million Afghans have been forced to leave internally displaced. 1.6 million Afghans have arrived in neighboring countries. 5.5 million Afghan refugees and people like in refugee-like situation are hosted in Iran and Pakistan. the UN Refugee Agency has called for a halt on forced return of Afghan nationals since August 2021, illegal immigration. In October 2021, Pakistan announced a plan to force undocumented immigrants to leave the country within 30 days. Over 650,000 Afghans have been forced to leave Pakistan and return to the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. Other factors that have contributed to the forced displacement in Afghanistan include the Soviet invasion, which caused about 2 million Afghans to be internally displaced, natural disasters, military actions or violence by varying factions. Thank you.
Rule number 79/123/3. Delegate from Mexico.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate cause. I am here to inform the impact of illegal smuggling in my country, Mexico. Mexico is significantly impacted by illegal smuggling activities which pose major challenges to its security, economy and society. Here are some key ways that how Mexico was affected. Mexico is both a source and transit country for human trafficking. Victims are often smuggled into or through Mexico for forced labor or sexual exploitation. Illegal smuggling activities undermine Mexico's economy by diverting resources into illegal channels or corrupting institutions. The presence of powerful smuggling organizations poses significant security challenges for Mexico. Violence associated with turf wars clash with security forces and extortion activities. Illegal smuggling contributes to widespread corruption in Mexico as smugglers often bribe officials to facilitate their operations. The impact of illegal smuggling on Mexican society is profound, with many communities affected by violence and erosion of trust in institutions. So I request the UN to support Mexico to fight against illegal smuggling activities. Thank you, President.
Number 79/123/4. Delegate from USA.
Thank you, President. Motion for unmoderate cause. I want to inform House about the illegal immigrants into Asia. To measure the impact that illegal immigrants is hard to accurately display for a plethora of reasons. Not only we are using rough estimations on the number of illegal immigrants in our country, but also having to decipher how many resources they are using, and if their children are also using the resources, shows that the illegal immigrants increase the size of US economy, contribute to the economic growth, enhance the welfare of natives, contribute more in tax revenue, then they collect American firms incentives to offshore jobs and import foreign produced goods, and benefit consumers by reducing the goods and services. On the other hand, there is a data that shows that illegal immigrants are using the program that the government provides. Economists estimate that legalization would increase the population of illegal immigrants earning and consumption considerably and increase US GDP. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/124. Topic is nuclear proliferation. Rule number 79/124/1. Delegate from India.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate cause. The impact of nuclear weapons on India could be catastrophic both locally and globally. A nuclear war between India and Pakistan could kill 50 to 1.5 million people depending upon the yield of weapons used. The war would also cause millions of injuries, destroy major cities, power, transportation and financial infrastructure. A limited nuclear war would harm global agriculture, trigger famine and put nearly 2 billion people at risk of starvation. The war would have major and long-lasting ramifications for both Indian and Pakistani societies. The existence of nuclear weapons poses a significant threat to humanity, and their abolition is crucial for ensuring global peace and security. The devastating effects of nuclear weapons were evident in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Now, I'll use the time to inform all the delegates how India is working on world peace through various activities. India has been actively contributing to world peace through various initiatives. India is one of the largest contributors to United Nations Peacekeeping Force with over 7,000 troops deployed worldwide. India is a founding member of non-aligned movement promoting peaceful coexistence and cooperation among nations. India plays a key role in Indian Ocean Rim Association fostering regional cooperation and stability in the Indian Ocean. India promotes regional cooperation and peace through South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation (SAARC). India provides humanitarian aid and disaster relief to countries in need. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam World is one family. India's ancient philosophy promotes global unity and peaceful coexistence. In conclusion, the abolition of nuclear weapons is essential for global peace and security. It is a moral, economic and environmental imperative that requires
requires immediate action and attention. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/184/2. Delegate from Israel.
Thank you, President. Motion for a moderate cause. I'm here to elaborate the impact of nuclear weapons in my country, Israel. The impact of nuclear weapons in Israel would have catastrophic local and global consequences. To make this topic more clear, in this meeting of General Assembly, the impact of nuclear weapons in Israel would have existential threat to Israel's survival. Although Israel has the best missile defense system like the Iron Domes, the Arrows, to counter missile threats, it still faces a continuous threat from Iran, Palestine, Arab states and international states. The world free of nuclear weapons will create a new era for global peace, security and cooperation. Therefore, I urge for peace not only for Israel but also for entire world. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/184/3. Delegate from North Korea.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate causes. The term nuclear proliferation refers to the acquisition of nuclear weapons by nations or terrorist organizations. The issue of nuclear proliferation was brought to the world's attention when both India and Pakistan exploded several nuclear devices on May 1988. In 1956, North Korea signed the founding charter of Soviet Union's Joint Institute for Nuclear Research and began sending scientists and technicians to USSR for training. In 2003, North Korea withdrew from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and then tested its first nuclear weapon. The purpose of nuclear proliferation is the spread of nuclear weapons technology, or sending the fissile materials to the countries that do not already possess them, apart from deterring an attack against a vital interest of a state. In conclusions, the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, binds us ratifying to stop the spread of nuclear weapons. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/185. Topic is cyber security. Rule number 79/185/1. Delegate from Sweden.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate causes. I'm here to inform the problems with cyber crimes in my country, Sweden. The Swedish cybersecurity landscape is poised for significant advancement and challenges. The growing complexity of cyber attacks, particularly on essential infrastructure like energy, manufacturing, financial and public services, is a major concern. According to the Swedish National Coordination Center for the Cybersecurity Research and Innovation, Sweden's vital services are undergoing an advanced digital transformation. However, information and cybersecurity efforts are lagging, leaving society increasingly vulnerable to these cyber incidents and creating a gap for international expertise to support the industry. Artificial intelligence is set to play a real role in the cybersecurity landscape, while AI can bolster security through advanced threat detection and response capabilities. It also introduces new risks as cyber criminals exploit AI for more sophisticated attacks. To address evolving threats, the European Union has introduced the Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA, effective on January 2025, which aims to strengthen IT security across financial institutions. In Sweden, the implementation of DORA will require financial institutions and other affected sectors to significantly enhance the cybersecurity measures and operational resilience. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/185/2. Delegate from Australia.
Thank you, President. Motion for a moderate cause. As a concerned delegate of Australia, I stand before you today to discuss a pressing issue that affects us all. The impact of cybercrime in my country. In today's digital age, technology has transformed the way we live, work and interact with one another. However, this increased connectivity has also created new vulnerabilities, making us more susceptible to cyber threats. According to the Australian Cyber Security Centre, in the 2023-2024 financial year, there were over 87,400 cybercrime reports, with the average self-reported cost of cybercrime per report for individual increasing by 17% to $30,000. But cybercrime is not just a financial issue, it is also a matter of national security. Cyber attacks can compromise the personal data, disrupt the critical infrastructure, and even undermine our democratic institutions. As Australians, we have right to feel safe and secure online. But to achieve this, we must take collective actions. We need to be more vigilant, more aware, and more proactive in protecting ourselves and our communities from cyber threats. To face or handle this situation, firstly we must educate ourselves and our loved ones about online safety and cyber security best practices. This includes using strong passwords, being cautious when clicking on links or downloading attachments, and keeping a software and operating system up to date. Secondly, we must support our law enforcement agencies and cyber security experts in their efforts to combat cybercrime. This includes reporting suspicious online activity and cooperating with investigations. Finally, we must demand more from our government and corporations to prioritize cyber security and protect the personal data. In conclusion, the impact of cybercrime in Australia is a pressing concern that requires a collective attention and action. Let us work together to create a safer, more secure online environment for all Australians. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/126. Topic is global security. Rule number 79/126. Delegate from Russia.
Thank you, President. Motion for a moderate cause. The question of global security lies at the heart of international peace and stability. Today, we face a world marked by complex challenges: terrorism, cyber threats, climate change, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. These issues transcend borders and demand a unified cooperative response. The Russian Federation believes security is indivisible. No nation can achieve true safety at the expense of another. We must move beyond outdated zero-sum thinking and embrace a cultural approach that addresses the root causes, including poverty and inequality. Diplomacy must be a primary tool for resolving conflicts. Russia calls for strengthening mechanisms for dialogue and peacekeeping, ensuring every nation has a voice in shaping solutions. In the spirit of arms control, we must highlight the importance of agreements like the New START Treaty. We must expand these efforts to prevent an arms race in the emerging domains such as space and cyberspace. Equally, cyber threats and misinformation require robust international norms to prevent their misuse. Distinguished delegates, the time for action is now. The Russian Federation believes the Russian Federation stands ready to work with all the nations to build a world where security is shared and peace is sustained. Together, we can overcome today's challenges and lay the foundation for a stable and prosperous future. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/127. Topic is global commerce. Rule number 79/127/1. Delegate from Germany.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderated causes. I'm here to appreciate the impact of global commerce on Germany. Global commerce has significantly developed Germany by making it one of the world's leading exporters, primarily due to its strong manufacturing base and focus on innovation, allowing the country to leverage its Central European location to access large markets across the continent. Contributing significantly, Germany has become a major player in international trade value chains and capitalizing on its industrial prowess. Export powerhouse, integrated value chains, trade fairs and events, skilled workforce, social market economy. These are the points how global commerce has developed Germany. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/127/2. Delegate from China.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderated causes. Global commerce has negatively impacted China in a number of ways, including China's exports have been struggling with a 14.5% decline in July 2023, the fastest decline since the COVID-19 outbreak. This is due to weaker global demand and rising geopolitical tensions. China is struggling with weak consumer spending at home and abroad. In June 2023, the youth unemployment rate rose to a record high of 20% of the urban population aged 16 to 24 years old. Consumer prices have fallen into deflationary territory with 0.3% fall in July 2023. These start-up economic policies that have resulted in over-reliance on exports and fixed investment for economic growth. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/128. Topic is conflict resolution. Rule number 79/128/1. Delegate from Ukraine.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate cause. I'm here to inform the impact of Russia involvement in civil war. The Russia-Ukrainian war began in February 2014 following Ukraine's revolution and dignity. Russia occupied and annexed Crimea from Ukraine's military in Donbass war. The first 8-year conflict also included naval incident and cyber warfare. starting the biggest conflict in Europe since World War II, Russia launched a full-scale annexation of Ukraine and began occupying more of the country. The war has resulted in refuse of thousands of deaths. I request UN to control Russia involvement in our country matters. Thank you, President.
Rule number 79/128/2. Delegate from Myanmar.
Thank you, President. Motion for moderate cause. Britain was heavily involved in Myanmar's civil war through its colonial rule over the country known as Burma, which led to 3 Anglo-Burmese wars between the British Empire and the Burmese Combat Dynasty, ultimately resulting in the annexation of the entire country by 1885, sparking significant resistance and conflict within the region. This colonial legacy continues to impact the current political situation in Myanmar today. The British fought 3 wars against the Burmese monarchy, with the 3rd Anglo-Burmese War in 1895 leading to complete annexation of Burma under British rule. British rule in Burma was characterized by economic exploitation, favoring British interests over local population, which contributed to resentment and resistance. The British policies often favored certain ethnic groups over others, creating tensions that persist today. The British forcefully suppressed any Burmese resistance to their rule, leading to widespread violence and unrest. The legacy of British colonial rule caused a civil war in Myanmar. Thank you, President.
Now the session ends. Some topics will be forwarded to discuss in Security Council by voting with both permanent and non-permanent members.
Good evening, Excellencies and delegates. Session starts with the roll call. Please mention present, present and voting. The session starts with the permanent members. They are USA, UK, France, Russia and China. And the non-permanent members are Ecuador, Guyana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, Switzerland. 128 by 1. Delegate from USA.
Thank you, President. Point of personal privilege. The United States, our allies and our partners worldwide united in support of Ukraine in response to Russia's premeditated, unprovoked and unjustified war against Ukraine. We have not forgotten Russia's earlier aggression in eastern Ukraine and occupation following its unlawful seizure of Crimea in 2014. The United States reaffirms its unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders extending to its territorial waters. Ukraine is a key regional strategic partner that has undertaken significant efforts to modernize its military and increase its interoperability with North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It remains an urgent security assistance priority to provide Ukraine the equipment it needs to defend itself against Russia's war. We have provided approximately $61.4 billion in military assistance since Russia launched its brutal full-scale invasion on Ukraine on February 24, 2022. And approximately $64.1 billion in military assistance since Russia's initial invasion of Ukraine in 2014. We have now used the Emergency Presidential Drawdown Authority on 55 occasions since August 2021 to provide Ukraine the military assistance totaling approximately $31.733 billion from devotee stockpiles. The US has committed over $2 billion in security assistance to Ukraine, including artillery ammunition, javelins, and howitzers. Additionally, the US has provided air defense systems and tens of million rounds of ammunition. The US has also provided significant financial aid to Ukraine, including $107 million in humanitarian aid. Furthermore, the US has imposed economic sanctions on Russia, targeting the Russian government, banks, and individuals. In all these ways, we are supporting Ukraine to develop as the best country in all aspects. But we never raised a warfare situation in Ukraine. So, I request Russia's delegation not to give unnecessary statements on the US. Thank you, President.
Delegate from Russian Federation.
Thank you, President. Point of personal privilege. Really, some comments on my country are not at all acceptable because in April 2010, that is 1 month after winning the election, the Ukrainian government signed a landmark agreement with the Russian government in the city of Kharkiv. At that time, Mr. Dmitry Medvedev was the Russian president and the Prime Minister was Mr. Vladimir Putin. As per this agreement, Russia agreed to reduce the price of natural gas sold to Ukraine by 30%. In return, Russia wanted the Ukrainian government to extend the lease of Russian naval base in Crimea at Sebastopol for 25 years. This was the deal. After the end of Soviet Union in 1991,
The newly independent Ukraine had many issues with Russia. One of them was how to divide the fleet of Russian naval base among both the countries. So both the countries had an agreement in which Ukraine allowed Russia to use the seaports of Black Sea and other facilities in Crimea. This agreement got extended for more than 25 years in 2010 after the arrival of President Viktor Yanukovych. United States always had interest in Ukraine. When Ukraine got separated in 1991, United States quickly recognized Ukraine and extended its full support for it. In 1994, it was United States who helped Ukraine and Russia come to an agreement on the elimination of Soviet nuclear weapon system in Ukraine and ensured safety and security for Ukraine. After leaving the Soviet Union in 1991, in the following years, Ukraine was added to Non-Proliferation Treaty by United States. In 2003, Ukraine had deployed thousands of troops in Iraq and supported the invasion of Iraq by United States. So you see, United States always had interest in Ukraine, and likewise, Ukraine also extended its full support for it. And on the other hand, it was Russia who is against the United States and the European Union's interference in Ukraine. In 2013 studies, about 45 to 50% of the Ukrainian population supported the Euro-Maiden movement. The biggest support for this movement can be found in Kyiv and Western Ukraine. Almost similar percentage of the Ukrainian population even opposed the movement. In March 2014, Yanukovych and some of his government officials fled to Russia. A temporary government in Ukraine was appointed. So we are not the reason for the civil war started in Ukraine, and we request you so better not to give a negative conclusion on this issue. Thank you, President.
For voting. Delegates, please vote. Majority countries voted against Russia, so there should be no more future invasions on Ukraine by Russia. 128 by 2. To respond comments made by Myanmar in General Assembly against Britain involvement in Myanmar civil war. Delegate from Britain.
Thank you, President, and thank you, High Commissioner, for your sobering update. Motion point of personal privilege. We share concern at the situation in Myanmar. We condemn the junta's increasingly brutal tactics, including the indiscriminate airstrikes, arson attacks, conflict-related sexual violence. The targeting of the civilian infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, and places of worship, must cease. Civilians must be protected. Over 2,600 people have been killed since the coup. Over 19,000 people have been arbitrarily detained. Female pro-democracy activists are increasingly targeted online. The UK will continue to apply pressure through international fora, targeted sanctions, and other means to oppose the junta's violent and oppressive actions. I am proud that the UK led efforts to secure the first ever UN Security Council resolution on Myanmar, which urges all parties to respect human rights and to end violence. Accountability is the only way to end the military's culture of impunity. Perpetrators must be brought to justice. To this end, the UK has established a Myanmar Witness Program, which reports on some of the most egregious human rights violations. High Commissioner, how can the international community support access to justice for victims and survivors of sexual violence? Thank you, President.
For voting. Delegates, please vote. Majority of the members are not accepting the involvement of Britain in the internal matters of Myanmar. Therefore, Britain should not involve in Myanmar's matters in future. 129 by 1. Delegate from China.
Thank you, President. China contributes to international peace and security. My country has been increasingly involved in international peace and security efforts, demonstrating its commitment to global stability and cooperation. China contributes to international peace and security, including different ways like peacekeeping operations, conflict resolutions and mediation, counter-terrorism and non-proliferation, humanitarian assistance and international security governance. China's growing role in international peace and security reflects the commitment of global stability and cooperation. While challenges remain, China's contributions to international peace and security. Thank you.
Delegate from France.
Thank you, President. Motion for an unmoderate cause. I am here to elaborate the importance of peace and security. Without peace, it will not be possible to achieve the levels of trust, cooperation, and inclusiveness needed for the societies to be resilient to shocks, manage disputes, and adapt to changes in their environment. The UN Security Council has the primary responsibility for international peace and security. Through individual peace talks, speakers from different sectors and industries share their ideas and stories and practical solutions to resolve conflicts. Peace creates a sense of security, respect, tolerance, and stability to pursue goals without threats. Security is very important for many different reasons. A nation must ensure their safety as a whole as well as the persons living in the nation. It is equally important that the nation's economy is stable and growing. Security measures enhance safety, prevent incidents and protect property and to contribute overall well-being of individuals and communities. Security is something that every nation deals with in many different ways. It is the way the nations come together and create allies. However, it is also a way for nations to create enemies. There are a variety of concerns that require attention around the world, including state security, human security, and economic security. So, I request UN to support this thought and allow all countries to follow the same pattern to increase peace and security among world countries. Thank you, President.
We appreciate France and China's efforts for world peace. Now the session ends. The next session will be continued tomorrow. Thank you.